We are live.
Hello and welcome to the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Matt George is here, and I think this is my partner Leo with me, or some Google Urkel wannabe. We joined this call together about 5 minutes before we got started here, and I see his face come up, and all of a sudden these glasses and this headband's on, and I was confused for a second because I saw the Cowbell Kingdom logos in the background. But I saw him, and I thought I was like thrown into some weird chat roulette session with some total loser. So I genuinely had a moment of panic. Like, where am I? And
we need some laughs, Matt. The Kings just lost. Let's make this, happy
not this
podcast kind of show.
No chance. It's been a long time since we've been together in this setting, and a lot has happened. A lot of stories have come out. Both on Cowbell Kingdom and outside of Cowbell Kingdom. A lot of games have been played. Now the Kings are on game 2 of their 6-game road trip that they're currently on that just wrapped up against the Washington Wizards. We have the end of the homestand to talk about. A lot for us to touch on. Leo, I know you went to Reno, and then when you got back from Reno after watching the Big Horns, you got really sick. So we haven't been able to do even our post-game shows. So it's really been on and off, but we're back this week. We're restarting everything, getting everything right back up to speed. And then once we have the Sacramento Kings come back to Sacramento, then we'll bring you back the post-game show and everything. So we apologize to everybody who was anxiously waiting for those and who hasn't been hearing anything or wondering what the heck's going on. That's the explanation, just been sickness and busyness and all kinds of chaos. So we are back, and we are ready to talk some Sacramento Kings stuff. But before we get that going, Leo, if you could just talk about your trip to Reno, and I know you put that vlog out there, just the trip overall, what was it like and how was it for you?
Well, it was crazy because Emmanuel and I left pretty early, about noonish. We got there about 6 o'clock. We got stuck in the snow for about 5 to 6 hours. It wasn't cool. I literally had to walk all the way to the restroom and step in deep, deep snow. It was ludicrous, but we survived it. We got to Reno, to the Reno Event Center. We got to watch Malachi Scout play. I got to talk to the guys before the game, and they were pretty excited for the home opener. And as you can see, it showed that night. Malachi was on fire in the first half. I believe he had 19 points. He finished with 27 or 29. I don't remember, but, it was a good overall game. Scout kind of struggled, but he still finished with 8 rebounds. So I saw lots of positives overall. I definitely saw that Lamar Patterson is an NBA player on a D-League team. He should probably be, your 10th through 14th guy on any roster, really. The guy can play. He played last year with the Hawks in the playoffs, so you could tell that this guy has NBA experience, and he would just destroy the D-League talent. But I love what I'm seeing from Malachi Richardson. He's excited. He's embracing this moment and this opportunity to showcase his skills, and he has done a great job with doing that.
So Leo's mainly going to be your go-to guy when it comes to Reno Big Horns updates. I know you have a strong connection with a lot of people down in Reno because that's where you went to school at UNR.
Yeah.
So you're really going to be the back and forth with the actual Reno Big Horns themselves. So anyone that has any Reno questions or just Reno things they want to talk about, go to Leo right away. 1st. He will be at the game December 1st. You heard it right here. And then he will also be always live tweeting, just keeping an eye on. You've seen him live tweet as soon as Kings rookies have been called up or moved down. Leo's always one of the first to be on that. So he's going to be your go-to guy for anything Reno Big Horns. And now that they're specifically owned by the Kings themselves, it's definitely something, and especially with all 3 rookies there, it's definitely something you're going to want to keep your eyes on as the season goes on, how these players progress. Based off of what we've seen from Malachi Richardson, and I've only seen limited highlights, and I've also watched bits and pieces of games being streamed online. But based off of his stats and the limited highlights that I've seen, Malachi Richardson is playing with a lot of confidence at the 2-guard spot, which is really exciting. You can tell he's making the most out of his situation down there, and it seems like he has a positive attitude, knowing obviously this isn't where I want to be. I want to be at the NBA level. and I think I'm ready or good enough for the NBA level. But if they're going to put me down here, I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to dominate here so that I show that this talent is nowhere near quality enough for me to play against. I need to be up at the NBA level, and that's where I belong, and that's where I should be playing. And Malachi, if he continues with that mindset and continues with the numbers he puts up, he's going to get that opportunity. A lot of it, unfortunately, is going to tie into how good or how bad the Sacramento Kings are playing, especially at that two guard spot, with how Aaron Aflalo has struggled, with how inconsistent Ben McLemore is. You may see Richardson getting more and more opportunities and quite possibly getting a nod here towards the middle and end part of the season. But we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But overall, the vibe I think I'm getting from you, Leo, is that a lot of positives certainly to take away from what we've seen so far out of not just Malachi, but all three rookies and then the other players that are on that Reno Big Horns D-League team.
That's exactly his mindset. I'm an NBA talent. I'm playing in the D-League. This isn't a demotion because I'm here to get reps. And that's what you want from your rookies, to have that mindset, to not take it as a negative, but the complete opposite. Take it as a positive, grow your game, mature, because the nice thing is that you're playing in the same system as the Kings. So it's the exact same system. Derek Martin is doing a good job trying to implement the system. That way these players are ready to go up when it's time to. In my own personal opinion, I believe Malachi is good enough to be playing right now, especially over Ben McLemore. But that's a different discussion for a different day. We'll see if he continues to play well. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see the development of Papagiannis as well, because he has looked a lot better. Obviously not where you want him to be, especially because he was a number 13 pick. And I know how much you loved your guy, Valentine. So he won't meet your expectations or anyone else's expectations as a number 13 pick this year. So we'll see if he does next year. I'll just be honest. He won't be ready this year. He has to grow a lot as far as his weight and just trying to get stronger and acclimated to this new basketball game, which is so much faster than what he's really used to. And, you know, you can even tell in the D-League, which is crazy, but you do see that European offensive touch where, you know, if he gets deep enough, his inside touch, his hook shot is very nice, and he has that down. Now it's a matter of just trying to get faster and just trying to get there defensively, because he's never in the right position to actually rebound the ball. So if he wasn't 7'2", he wouldn't be getting much rebounds.
I like to believe that the Sacramento Kings fan base and all of the organization, I know I have, and I believe you have too, Leo, that we've accepted the fact that Papa G is not going to be playing for the Sacramento Kings very much, if at all, this season. Certainly not at a high minutes level, only for developmental purposes and maybe late in games if he's called up. I'm coming to grips with that. The hardest hump to get over was not him as a player, it was where he was selected in the draft. But that's over. It's done with. We knew he was a project. Vlade made it very clear that he was a project. Whether or not it's smart to take a project that high in the draft, even though 13 is not extremely high, but it's still higher in the draft to take a project like Papagiannis, it's done no matter what. So I have patience with the big man. I hope that he can work out. I've seen bits and pieces of his workouts. He actually works very, very hard in pregame. All three rookies do. Labissiere, Malachi Richardson, Papagiannis. They all work very, very hard in their pregame warm-ups and their pregame routines and all their workouts. So they're definitely putting in the work. The effort is there. It's not like they are slacking off or pouting because of the situation that they're in. They know that they have to earn their spot on a roster that has a lot of depth. They know that if they want to be the future, they've got to work for it. And I believe they've all accepted that. And I think now we as a fan base and us as media need to accept that as well, and just know that, okay, we can keep an eye on them and credit them for their improvements and watch their progression, but don't get too low when they struggle, and don't have too high of expectations for them to be wearing a Kings jersey in serious playtime anytime soon. Do you think that's accurate?
100%, Matt.
All right, well, so that's our Reno Big Horns update. And we can start with a little positives there, because now we head down into the doom and gloom, which is tonight's game. But before we get into tonight's game, we want to let you know just everything that we're going to be talking about, because it's going to be hard to fit this all into an hour, Leo, but we're going to get it done. We have a lot of discussion to talk about. Two major stories came out on Cowbell Kingdom involving both DeMarcus Cousins and Omri Casspi. A lot has progressed, and actually it caught a lot of fire and got a lot of attention based off of that, which we love, but also have to really break down and have to maybe explain to some people that didn't necessarily understand what the situations were. And you and I were both very, very close to all of it and everything going on. We've appreciated all the support and loved all the support that we've been getting.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He comes on with a headband and then he debuts sound effects that I don't even know he has. This is all on the fly, ladies and gentlemen. You think you would want to tell your co-host or something like this is happening? Nope, just do it on the fly and scare the living crap out of them again. But anyway, I work with Carmichael Dave. I should be used to sound effects by now. But so we're going to break down everything and we're going to talk a lot about everything. But we have to start with tonight's game where the Kings just lost to the Washington Wizards. The final score in overtime. Kings end up falling short. 101-95 was the final. Yet another overtime game, Leo, where the score looks like a normal basketball score after 4 quarters. Both teams offensively just could not really get anything going. The play was sloppy all night long. John Wall had a triple-double in the third quarter because he had 10 assists, 11 points, and 10 turnovers. The sloppiness of the game was just ridiculous. 23 turnovers for Washington, 20 for the Sacramento Kings. The Kings shot 40%. Washington shot 41. It was an ugly, ugly game to watch. Bradley Beal was really the only one doing anything for the Wizards, and then DeMarcus Cousins was the only one really doing anything for the Sacramento Kings. But ultimately, yes, you can use the excuse that they're coming off of a back-to-back and having played last night in Brooklyn. There are plenty of excuses that you can make for the team. But ultimately, Leo, this is a team that they should have won by double digits.
Yeah.
This game was absolutely a horrible loss for the Sacramento Kings because it's clear they are leagues better than the product that Washington put out there on the floor.
Yeah, this is, and I know you hate facts, but this is how I felt. Yeah, I know.
Crickets.
Okay, crickets. Because there was absolutely no people, and you said it on Twitter, Matt. If you complain about the GC1 and the top row, you could have had your own row by yourself, right?
Right. Everybody's talking about how bad the leg room is in the Upper Bowl.
Yeah, I typed that in there.
Yeah, go ahead and go to a Washington Wizards game. You can have an entire section to spread your legs.
There you go. So you're right. I don't want to hear any more excuses. Tonight was a night where the Wizards tried so hard to give the game to the Kings, and they just didn't take it from them. So that's pretty much the real breakdown of this game. Last night, we saw a lot more cohesiveness from this unit, something that we didn't see tonight. It wasn't a back-to-back, but again, this Wizards team is not very good. And from all the speculation that we've been hearing, Bradley Beal and John Wall have not really been on par like they have in the past. And a lot of it has to do with Garrett Temple being on the Kings, because Garrett Temple was a very good locker room presence and the leader on the floor and the leader outside of the floor. So when you lose a guy like that, you tend to have a little bit of issues, which is what happened when they lost Paul Pierce to the Clippers last year. They didn't make the playoffs last year. They won't make the playoffs again this year. So it's going to be another tough year for the Wizards. But tonight they beat the Kings, and it's just not a good feeling, man.
If the Kings put in 5 or 6 or 7 more minutes of 100% solid effort with clean execution, because the fact of the matter was the execution was bad. That's going to happen sometimes, but the effort was not there tonight, Leo. It was in certain spurts, but look at the amount of times the Kings were beaten on the offensive glass tonight, especially late. A lot of costly second chance opportunities that the Wizards ended up the three-pointer in the corner, I think it was I don't think it was Bradley Beal that hit the three. It might have been Otto Porter. But the three was hit in the corner that made it a 5-point game. And from that point, the Kings really didn't have much of a shot at coming back. That came off of an offensive rebound. The Kings were very lackluster in the hustle plays, and maybe they were a little bit tired again from last night. Yes, that excuse is valid, but it's not something that I'm willing to accept from a team where, like I said, 5, 6, 7 more minutes of solid effort. The Kings could have won this game by double digits, and it really wouldn't have been close, and it's pretty obvious and clear to see.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, this Wizards team is really discombobulated from the sense that your leader didn't really take shots or didn't really look to score in the first half. Yeah, he had 10 assists, but he had 10 turnovers. So he continued to turn the ball over. And Bradley, literally, if it wasn't for Bradley Bradley Beal's hot shooting night, there is no way that they would have won this game. And it's unfortunate, but you never know, man. Things might go south for this team. And, you know, Bradley Beal is a chip that you might be able to trade if you're a different team.
We have a lot of good conversation going on the chat stream right now. A lot of people going back and forth debating some things, and we'll touch on as many things as we see them. One thing that I'm seeing right now, though, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, I believe it's Javier Joseph. It's spelled Xavier Joseph, but I believe it's pronounced Javier. I could be wrong. Javier Joseph, whatever your name is. Thank you for joining. But one of the things he just says right here is he says we should manhandle the Sixers. The Sacramento Kings should manhandle the Sixers.
Yeah, psych.
Yeah. You can't say things like that when your team comes out and lays an egg against the Washington Wizards, because the fact of the matter is the Sixers would have beaten the Wizards tonight. The Wizards were terrible, and they were terrible at home. The Philadelphia 76ers have a lot more youthful energy and a lot of guys that are trying to fight to prove that they belong in this league, whereas the Washington Wizards have a bunch of veterans and guys that know they already belong in this league but don't really have much of a season to fight for because their team just isn't that good. The Philadelphia 76ers are going to play better than the Wizards did tonight, which means the Kings are going to have to play better, and they're going to have to play a lot better because they are on the road. It is another East Coast game, and whether you like it or not, that does have an effect. The Sacramento Kings have work to do, so to just file this in as a guaranteed win,
no easy game for the Sacramento Kings.
The Sacramento Kings, by all means, should be 3-0 to start this road trip, but they're not. And it's because we constantly see this. The Kings play down to the level of their competition, and there aren't too many teams that are worse than the Sacramento Kings, but the Wizards are one of them, Philadelphia is one of them, and Brooklyn's one of them. And without the bench's effort in the Brooklyn game last night, the Kings would have been well out of reach of that game, and then Rudy and DeMarcus ended up putting it away. And then without really the bench in the first half of this one, this could have gotten ugly as well. So the Philadelphia game, the Kings need to come out, and in my opinion, they need to make a statement. They need to show, okay, it was a fluke in Washington. We were tired. We're going to help DeMarcus out a little bit more. He's not going to be the only one that's scoring points. We need to play an all-around better game of basketball as a team and take better care of the basketball. If they do that, then yes, they should be able to beat the Philadelphia 76ers. But don't you dare ever think that it's a lock, because there's no such thing as a lock win for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, and let's highlight something real quick. Ty Lawson has been playing very good basketball ever since he got moved to the bench. So, you know, give props where props is due. I didn't think that would work, only because the second unit would miss the offense of Darren Collison, but it's been the complete opposite. The second unit, as you stated, Matt, in your article, has embraced playing as a whole and playing up-tempo basketball, which is good to see, because then you have a guy like Kosta Koufos who rebounds the ball when DeMarcus is not there. So you have a guy who excels in transition, which is Ty Lawson. He breaks down defenses and he gets his teammates open shots. It's beautiful to watch.
So it's safe to say that the Sacramento Kings regressed tonight. They took steps backwards. And I think there's one of the very clear reasons why that happened. Look at the starting lineup that Dave Yeager put out there. I know a lot of people were harping on it on Twitter and on social media. Why is the starting lineup out there? I can understand for matchup purposes why Yeager wanted DeMarcus Cousins and Koufos out there. But what we saw, the success that we saw from the Kings on the end of that homestand and in the game against Brooklyn, is they play really, really well with that small lineup, with Matt Barnes playing the 4, Cousins playing the 5, and then a mixture of Rudy Gay, Omri Casspi, or Rudy Gay and Aaron Aflalo, or Rudy Gay and Garrett Temple, and then Darren Collison running the point. The Kings went back to the starting lineup of Koufos and Cousins on the floor at the same time. Matt Barnes was not a part of it, and it was back to the only difference from the starting lineup from the start of the season to tonight's, was Darren Collison as the point guard. And yes, that's an improvement over Ty Lawson, but still, you can see the problems that the Kings have moving the ball and just working the ball around. Koufos needs to be in that bench unit, and Matt Barnes needs to be with that starting group. And I think it's pretty clear.
Or start Omri if Matt can't play back-to-back games, which I think that had to do with it. But still, there's no reason to put Costa back into the starting lineup. I like the fact that you add another wing, which the Kings have in Omri, and Omri has been playing very well, Matt.
Yeah, Omri has been playing well, and I know there's a lot of debate. There's been some debate going on our comment stream right in front of us about Omri Casspi, whether or not he should play. I am in the boat that he should play. You and many others are in the boat that, I'm sorry, not you, but many others are in the boat that maybe he shouldn't necessarily. I talked to Omri Casspi, and I released an article after my conversation with Casspi before. I can't remember which particular game it was, but it was not last week, but just the week before, and it was talking about just his playing time and what he feels he can bring to the team, and we'll talk about that and break that down in just a little bit. But Casspi has shown that he can be a spark off the bench, but ultimately, it's not just Casspi, it's that bench unit as a whole. When Kufos is on that unit, and when Jaeger's going with a maximum of 9-guy rotation, there's usually one starter on the floor at all times, and I don't think Jaeger rarely, if ever, has DeMarcus Cousins and Rudy Gay off the floor at the same time. Usually one of them at least is on the floor running with whatever unit is out there. They've had success with that. So again, I can understand for matchup reasons why Jaeger would maybe try and change it up and see if he thought maybe this lineup could get the job done tonight. But it's pretty clear that the team is not working at full potential, and they just don't look as smooth when they have that starting lineup that they had tonight versus when they have that bench unit that we saw in the final couple of home games.
Can you see this?
Can I see what? Let's see here.
Omri Casspi on Dave Jaeger.
Yes. Aha. There it is.
Yeah, I'm just learning how to do this Google Hangout stuff, and it looks like we can screen share, so that's pretty neat.
How about that?
So there it is, guys. Check out the story of Mr. Matt George, where he interviews Omri Casspi.
Yeah, it was a great conversation with Omri, and I guess we'll just transition into that. Ultimately, the ho-hum of tonight is it was a game the Sacramento Kings should have won. They didn't win. It's frustrating. They're going to have some work to do against Philadelphia, but hopefully these next couple of days of rest that they get will be beneficial for them. Certainly it could prove to be just what they need to get themselves back on track, and then we'll see what lineups that Coach Jaeger ends up rolling out there. But yes, I did have a chance to speak with Omri Casspi, and this was after the initial rumors came out that he was interested in seeking a trade. And I sat down with him, and he was very open and very honest with me. And that's something that I love about Omri Casspi, is he's always open, and he's very smart with how he talks to the media, because he does not let you into all the drama that really media shouldn't be a part of in any locker room. Even if you feel like it needs to be put out there, usually you kind of keep it quiet. Omri always does that. He's always very professional. He's very honest with his opinions and with his feelings and how he feels. But he's also extremely humble with where he's at. And if you read through that article, again, it's on Cowboy Kingdom right now. You can also find it on ESPN, which has been phenomenal that many of our Cowboy Kingdom articles are now on ESPN. So thank you so much to ESPN for doing that. And I know a lot of fans have come to see the articles through that. And we thank you, everyone who's taken the time to read those. But what Casspi basically told me was a mixture of things. Now, the article itself is titled that he and Dave Jaeger haven't spoken since preseason. That was a direct quote that Casspi told me. When I asked him after the rotations had come out, this was a couple days after Dave Jaeger had told the media that he had a meeting with his players, and he announced to them, this is my rotation going forward. So everybody knows, it's right out there. So there's no questions and nobody feels left in the dark. So I asked him after he found out that he wasn't a part of the rotation going forward, if Dave Jaeger had talked to him at all, or maybe, a one-on-one between player and coach. Coach, why am I not in that lineup? Is there anything you want me to work on? Is there a chance for me to maybe get there? I asked him if that kind of meeting had gone on, and what he responded with was, it was a team-only meeting. We haven't talked since preseason. Now, a lot of people saw that quote and blew it out of proportion, thinking, oh my gosh, Omri is being screwed over by Jaeger. Jaeger hates Omri. No, that's not the case, because my immediate follow-up question to that was, well, have you approached Jaeger, Omri? And Omri said, no, I haven't approached Jaeger either. So neither side has tried to talk to one another and try and get a feel. It's just the relationship that they have. Although I know Casspi was very frustrated at the time, feeling that he never really got an opportunity to earn his minutes. Jaeger brought his guys in Matt Barnes and Anthony Tolliver, and they added depth to his position, and he didn't get much of an opportunity to fight for it, he feels. However, he does feel, and you can read it in the article, that he has a lot to bring this team, especially offensively, especially as a hustle guy when the Kings were lacking on the offensive end in the open court, in transition, and pushing the ball and really keeping the energy up. A guy like Omri Casspi is sitting on the bench wondering, why the heck are you not playing me? This is perfect. I remember after one of the games, Dave Yeager said Ty Lawson was struggling because he's a fast-paced player and there's nobody out there to match his pace. And I talked to Omri about that, and Omri said, hello, I'm the perfect guy for that situation. So now Omri Casspi is getting playing time, and yes, he's a little rusty here and there, but we're seeing flashes of why he can be great and why he can really help this team win. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Leo, as I continue to ramble on here. He's one of my favorite players, by the way, on the team, not just of how he plays on the court, but just how he carries himself off the floor. He's just such a professional as well. So if you can tell how much of a homer I am, there you go.
And I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm highlighting what Matt was saying right now. We haven't talked since preseason. It was a team-wide meeting only. Can you see that?
I'm seeing it.
All right, so that's cool, and as you said, you followed up with neither party has approached one another. And I wanted to ask you, Matt, what that really means in terms of the cohesiveness of this unit. Like, why hasn't either party approached each other?
Well, it can be interpreted in a lot of ways. The way I interpreted it was Casspi was at the time very frustrated, and it was very clear with how frustrated he was that there has been a lack of communication, and Casspi felt not necessarily like he was being, what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't necessarily being persecuted per se for the kind of player that he was and for his position, but he felt like he was certainly being treated unfairly based off of, he was coming off of a career year last year with the Sacramento Kings where he had his best shooting numbers and best scoring numbers out of his entire career. And then he expects to take that next step into next year and continue to build on his role and hopefully build on that successful season. And then a new head coach comes in and he goes from improving and seeing that promise become reality to the end of the bench. So that was a tough transition for the guy. And Omri has one of the smallest egos out of anybody you'll see in the NBA. He has an ego, but it's tiny compared to other NBA stars. But still, that affects you as a player when you give your heart and soul and you see those results. Granted, it was under George Karl and not Dave Yeager, but you see those results happening. You know what you can bring to the table, and Yeager doesn't see that because he sees guys that he's more comfortable and more familiar with. Now, is Yeager alone in doing that? No, because coaches do that all the time. Every coach has their guys that they want to bring in, guys they know that they can work with, and a system that they feel they can take from their past and implement it into their present and into their future. So I don't think it's a super negative. It's frustrating, and it's kind of sad that there hasn't been that communication between the two parties. I think it would have been more of an issue if I had asked Omri whether or not he's approached Yeager, and Omri said, yeah, I've approached him, and Yeager refuses to talk to me. Then there's red flags there all over the place. But ultimately, Omri just expressed that, I'm just focusing on me. I'm just trying to do what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help this team win, and I'm trying to work hard and stay positive and keep my mouth shut and just keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing and trust in Yeager to do his job. And ultimately, Yeager doesn't owe him any kind of explanation. It would just be nice to get from your head coach.
Yeah, and now it's been reported that the Kings have allowed Omri's agent to explore a potential trading partner. Now, that doesn't mean that the Kings are going to trade him, because if there is no deal to be made, Vlade won't make the trade. So let's just clarify that. It's been reported he can look all he want, but if the deal doesn't make sense for the Kings, then the Kings won't make that. And I can't stress that enough to all Kings fans who just say, oh yeah, he's on the trading block and we're just going to get rid of him. It doesn't work that way, because Omri is on a great contract and he is a great team player and a very good swing man, especially at $6-7 million a year, which is a bargain. But with that said, I told you from the start, I have no idea why Ben McLemore was playing, and now it just seems like Omri comes off the bench, he's playing those minutes, and he just injects life into this team when this team is down and when they need it the most.
Omri Casspi is a hustle guy, and he says one of my favorite quotes that's in that article. I don't know if you can bring it up, Leo, as I'm saying it. But one of my favorite quotes that he says in that article, and it's not going to be word for word because I'm going off of memory here, but when I asked him about the kind of player that he is, that hustle guy, it's when he says, "That's who I am. That's how I play. Hustle is all I know, and that's
there. It is. It's who I am. I love fast. Fast is in my DNA.
Yeah, and that's never going to change," is how he ends it up with. And I appreciate
awesome
that.
quote, man.
It's a great quote, and that's exactly who Omri Casspi is, and that's why I believe he's able to be successful in this league and to find success, is because he knows what he brings. He doesn't try and be anything else that he's not. He knows he's not a superstar, well-rounded player. He knows that he's better in the open court and he's better playing fast, even if it leads to turnovers and mistakes. He's better there than he is as a grinded out in a half-court offense or a lockdown defender. That's just who he is. That's the player that he is, and that's the player that he's been to get him to the NBA. So why would he try and change it now? Yes, he can try and improve on it, but he's not going to change who he is. And he's provided a spark for the Kings in the past, and we've seen him provide sparks for the Kings in these last couple of games. So he has a lot of value that he can bring to the Kings or to another team. My question is, and it's the question really revolving around, and I'm curious on your opinion, Leo, and I'm curious on the opinions of our listeners that are here right now joining us live. And then for those that are listening on podcast later, you can still join in on the conversation as well. Do you believe that Omri Casspi is getting minutes right now because he deserves it and because Jaeger is starting to recognize that he can help the Kings win as part of the rotation? Or do you think the Sacramento Kings are just putting him in there to potentially showcase him to raise his trade stock and his value so they can potentially get a good role player or maybe even a draft pick in return?
It's a little bit of both, but I'm leaning towards more of the showcasing of Omri, especially since, you broke that story with him and they didn't really talk since preseason, and all of a sudden he starts to play, which is a good thing because maybe he realized that he's a better fit for the second unit than Ben McLemore. But again, I feel like if I had to choose one side, it would be the Kings are showcasing him for other teams to trade for because he is a very good player. And it just happens that the Kings have two other good players in that same position.
Yeah, and it's tough, and it's a good problem to have if you're a head coach. You want to have depth, but ultimately not everybody can play. And that's just the fact of the matter of it all, and it can be frustrating and it can be obnoxious and annoying and sad for the player that isn't playing. In Omri's situation, there are plenty of times where Omri could have thrown a fit and quit and sat on the end of the bench and pouted and not been involved at all and just said, fine, I want to be traded. But even if his agent is seeking or actively seeking a trade, and even if he's on the outs, Omri Casspi is still one of the first guys off the bench running out to greet his players, whether he plays 1 minute a game or whether he plays none. He is always that guy, and he's always been that guy, and he stays true to that. And that's why whether you like him as a ball player or not, you have to appreciate him as a teammate and a locker room guy. And I think one way or another, his presence is going to be missed when or if he ends up being traded to another team.
He played well tonight. He had a very nice outlet pass to Darren Collison, and I think he hit a three-pointer when they most needed one. So I love what he's bringing to this team. He's injecting life to a team that needs it from a spark player, and that's what he is. I love Matt Barnes and everything that he stands up for as far as being a great teammate as well and just being really tough. But he makes really silly passes, and he's been making them after his third game of the season, where in the first 3 games he was magnificent. There wasn't anything wrong that he did on the floor, but after that he's been getting carried away with a lot of these Rondo type passes and really making silly mistakes when the team doesn't need these type of passes, because all they do is they turn the ball over and they give the other team points, which is never a good thing, Matt.
I'm seeing a video right now as we speak, and it's making me smile like a little girl because a woman who the Memphis Grizzlies just tweeted it out, a woman who traveled 14 hours to see her idol Vince Carter play in Memphis. She brought a sign that said, I traveled 14 hours. And as he's walking out of the tunnel, or walking into the tunnel, he sees the sign and makes a beeline right towards her, pulls her out of the crowd, and takes a picture with her and signs the sign and gives her a hug. I love stuff like that. I mean, Vince Carter is a phenomenal player. There's so many guys in the league that are like that. We have to even point to our own DeMarcus Cousins here in Sacramento, guys that go the extra mile to make those fans feel special, and to really be that hero and be that role model. And full props to Vince Carter. I love seeing stuff like that, and I believe although they may not do it for recognition, at times they deserve the recognition for that. I know DeMarcus Cousins' motivation to help people and to work with kids and to bring Christmas gifts, and Matt Barnes's motivation to help feed the homeless on Thanksgiving and deliver food. It's not for their own personal image. It's not to get any kind of media attention, but sometimes they deserve to get it. And in a lot of cases, I think it's something that we should point out, and something that we should at least not necessarily go out and actively thank them for, but just pay homage to and recognize that these people are still human beings. And that's one of the first things, Leo, that I learned in this industry, kind of to peel back the curtain a little bit, is you see these guys play on TV and you see them play in real life in an NBA scale. And you think, wow, these guys are such larger than life people. And it's true, they are, and they're such phenomenal players. And some of them have come from really rough backgrounds. Some of them have stories that are worthy of movies and books and film. But then when you get into a locker room with them, or you get into a conversation with them, or you just spend some time with them, you recognize that they are human beings. And a lot of them have just as big, if not a bigger heart than you and I and anyone else in the community. And especially for guys like DeMarcus or Chris Webber back in the day, or people that spend their career in one place, they establish an attachment to a community and establish an attachment to a city and to a team. And I think that stuff is beautiful, and it's not nearly recognized as much as it should be. And I hope you and other people really agree and can appreciate it as much as I do.
Well said, Matt. I just noticed that I made a mistake on the title. I said 3 games remain. Actually, it's 4 games remain on this road trip.
3 games, 4 games after tonight.
It just feels the same after every loss.
Right. We want them to be back here as soon as possible, although they have played, I guess, a little bit better on the road than they have at home, maybe more consistently. But so, yeah, this is a 6-game road trip. Game 2 wrapped up tonight if you're just tuning in, and if you didn't see it, good for you. Lucky you. The Kings lost to the Washington Wizards tonight, a game they really, really should have won. Super frustrating. I just highlighted on the positives of what DeMarcus Cousins does, and make no mistake about it, he does a lot of wonderful things for our community. And I love that side of him. And I've always told people off the court, I think DeMarcus Cousins is one of the coolest and nicest guys, depending upon the setting and the time that you catch him. But I released and I wrote an article. It was the first article that actually got featured on ESPN for Cowbell Kingdom for quite a while, and it got a lot of feedback. It was seen by DeMarcus Cousins himself. It was seen by a lot of members of the team. It was seen by a lot of people all over the place and interpreted in a lot of different ways. And I wanted to take the time for myself as the writer of that story, and for you, Leo, as the one who put it out there, and you're the one who approached me about writing the story in the first place, to really break it down and to understand it. So if you want to go to Cowbell Kingdom right now and pull up the article that says Cousins Rage, good for stats, bad for Kings. And let me try and explain that as much as possible. This entire article is based off of a graphic that started circulating. And this graphic showed DeMarcus Cousins' point totals and his averages before a technical foul versus after a technical foul. And this was not just circulating between people in the media. This was circulating through fans. And fans were seeing this and taking this as, see, DeMarcus Cousins is a better player when he picks up a technical foul. It's better for the Sacramento Kings when DeMarcus Cousins has a technical. My point in writing the article was in no way to go after Cousins, the kind of player that he is. The point in writing the article was to express that that's just not true, and fans should not believe that, because technical fouls hurt the Sacramento Kings, and even though he is better statistically, ultimately it's resulting in losses, so it's not good that he's picking up technical fouls. That was the premise of the article. I know
Here
a lot
is
of
the graphic. Can you see it?
Yeah, we're looking at it right now. So you can see that graphic that we're looking at. You can see the point totals on there. DeMarcus Cousins, before technical, 23.6 points per game, and then after technical, 26.4. So the point totals are up. It's just under 3 points per game. So we put the average around 2.5 points per game is the difference. But one of the main things that I talked about in an article is just breaking that down, the points itself, specifically just looking at the numbers themselves. Most of the time when a technical foul happens, it results, well, all the time, it results in 1 free throw and then possession. So I don't exactly have a number in front of me, so you have to forgive me for that. I'm going off of more just speculation. But based off of the league and how the game is played, about 70, 75, 80, 85% of the time, maybe even 90% of the time, that technical free throw is made because the team is allowed to choose which free throw shooter, and it's usually their best one. So 85, 90% of the time, that free throw is made. And then possession, which usually results in a basket, maybe even a three-pointer. That's a potentially 3 or 4 point swing, which right there immediately negates his stats or his offensive stats and his plus
per 36 minutes.
Right, it's per 36 minutes. But right there immediately, that stat is taken out. It's not even equal, or it doesn't even balance out. It goes negative again. Also, we expressed in the article, or I expressed in the article, the effect that it has on the game. It takes DeMarcus Cousins out. And one of the first things I say in that article is that DeMarcus Cousins, part of what makes him as dominant as he is that attitude and is that fire and that anger that he plays with. There's no disputing that. But the only way to stop DeMarcus Cousins is to get into his head. The only person that can beat DeMarcus Cousins is DeMarcus Cousins. And other teams know that. They've known that for now 5-6 years since he's come into the league. That is literally the only thing. If DeMarcus Cousins is Superman, that is the only bit of kryptonite you can possibly find. But teams are able to throw out those guys like Steve Adams, guys like ASIC, just these guys that just get under your skin and bug you. You're clearly better than him. Dennis Schroeder. Cousins is clearly better than these players, but their job is to go out there and get under his skin and ultimately mentally take him out of the game. And whether you like it or not, it may not show up in the stat column, but that affects how he plays, and that leads to a lot of silly fouls. We see him with a lot of those slap reach-in fouls. We see him taken out of the game mentally with him arguing with the refs instead of getting back on defense, or maybe trying to do a little too much and forcing bad shots, trying to get calls that, newsflash, he usually doesn't get because of his reputation. Now you can have the argument, the discussion, whether or not that's okay. But the fact of the matter is they're humans. And if you yell at a human's not going to want to give you what you want. I mean, that's just called being human. And yes, the refs should not allow that. Their job description, they should not allow that to affect how they call the game. But being a human being, it's just in your nature. You can't just throw that out the window. You can't turn off your emotions and your feelings just like that as a referee. It's just impossible.
Yeah, and as you stated in your last paragraph, it's right here. I'm highlighting it, but I just feel like this entire story was pretty much on point. It didn't have much opinion, if any, because all these things that you listed were facts. I mean, the statistical improvement after technical foul is significant enough to note. And you're right. It's big. He improved by 2 or 3 points. But again, to suggest that it benefits the Kings, there is no way that benefits the team, because again, you give up a technical, then you possibly give up a 2 or 3 point play, and then all of a sudden you're upside down on that. It's like not this year's James Harden, but last year's James Harden, where he puts up 30 points a game, but he gives up 20 points. So how many points is he really scoring?
Right.
10, right? So those are things that Kevin Martin, who just retired, shout out to Kmart. He was dramatically always in the paper for allowing the opposing shooting guard to score lots of points, even though he averaged 23 points a game, right? Mm-hmm. But he would give up 15 to 18 points to the opposing guard. So those are the things that people just don't see, because all they see is stat box numbers, and that's not the final result or the ending story of basketball. There is more to it, and you really break it down well here, Matt.
Well, I appreciate that, and it was a fun article to write. I'm not going to lie, because it was a lot of looking at the statistics and looking at the struggles that the Sacramento Kings have had with DeMarcus Cousins as a member of the team. And is it fair to go after him completely and blame him all for this? No. And that's why this article is not trying to do that. Had I come out and said things along the lines of, it's DeMarcus Cousins' fault that this team doesn't win, or when he gets technical fouls, he causes the team to lose immediately, to say things like that is unfair and wrong. That's why they're not said. However, to say things like it has an effect on the locker room, or it has an effect on players, that's not a lie, because we've seen it before. Now, let me be very clear about this. A lot of people saw and read this article and went after it. And I can understand that because there are a lot of people that are very loyal to who DeMarcus Cousins is, and they see those stats and they see that how good of a player he is, and he is a phenomenal player, and they want to defend that. And
they're 1-6 when he scores 30 plus. But go ahead.
Yeah, 1-7 now because they lost to Washington.
Okay, 1-7.
That is who DeMarcus is, and a lot of people are so attached to that, and I can understand that. And I received a lot of heat from them, and I received a lot of heat from DeMarcus Cousins and his people themselves or himself. But saying things like that is not untrue because you can see the effect that it has. I challenge you, next time you're either watching a game on TV, it's more difficult on TV. When you go in person, if you go as many times as Leo and I do, and in person you see DeMarcus Cousins on one side of the court arguing, maybe during a timeout, and then you look over the body language of his teammates, of a Ben McLemore who's young and who feeds off of their leader in DeMarcus Cousins and sees DeMarcus doing that, and then your head starts to hang a little bit lower and suddenly you're not as into the game or motivated as you were. That is an effect that exists. Is DeMarcus Cousins a poison to the locker room? Absolutely not. Does DeMarcus Cousins have the locker room against him, or do people in the locker room hate playing with DeMarcus Cousins? No. Some may not like it at times, but they don't hate playing with him. But when he has his attitude and when he has his explosions, it affects his teammates. And just look at his history. He's had problems with Jason Thompson. He got in a fight with Dante Green. He clashed with Rudy Gay. He's clashed with Isaiah Thomas. And then look at the problems that he's had with coaching staffs as well. You can't say that his attitude and how he plays and his fire does not have an effect on his locker room and does not have an effect on his teammates and the staff, because it clearly does based off of his history and based off of the body language of his teammates. But again, I have no quote of a player coming out and saying, I can't stand playing with DeMarcus Cousins. He's a cancer, because it doesn't exist. And read the article, people. That's not what's trying to be expressed. And whether DeMarcus or other people took it that way, I apologize for you interpreting it like that. But if you read the article specifically for what it is, you will understand that that was the message that was being put out there, not that he's a cancer or that he needs to go or he is the problem for the Sacramento Kings.
Well, I agree. And we should move on to the remaining 4 games of this trip, because even though I put 3, there is 4, ladies and gentlemen. My bad.
So 4 more games to go here on this road trip. Before we get to that, though, we want to let you know that if you're a basketball fan or simply love the Sacramento Kings, which we hope you do because that's why you're here, hoopcats.com is the place to go when it comes to NBA autographs, memorabilia, and trading cards. That's right. If you want a signed DeMarcus Cousins or Willie Cauley-Stein rookie card, hoopcats.com has got them. They got them right now. Make sure to like their Instagram page and ask for the CK special to get some awesome deals on all of that stuff. Hey, your browser's open right now, or maybe you're on your phone watching this. Don't click off of it because we want you to stay here, but maybe open another tab, or as soon as this is over, go check out that website. Just browse, look around. You don't have to buy anything. Just do some window shopping. It's a great place, and you can keep in mind maybe
Friday, Cyber Monday shopping, man.
There you go. Cyber Monday, Black Friday. Hey, maybe find some Christmas gifts that you or some of your Kings friends or family may want. Hoopcats.com. Check it all out right there. But yes, still 4 more games left in this road trip for the Sacramento Kings, Leo. And like we talked about, the next one is in Philadelphia against the 76ers. Mm-hmm. On paper, are the Kings better than the Sixers? Duh.
Yeah.
Should they win that game? Yes, they should. But are they a lock? Absolutely not.
No. Can you see what I'm showing right now?
I can. Yep, I'm looking at it.
All right, cool. So, yeah, so December 2nd against Boston in Boston, which I was there last season. It was a great experience. It was on Super Bowl Sunday, which was, a conflict because I was split. I wanted to be in the Bay Area because it's right in our backyard. But I was in Boston, and it was great to visit that arena. That arena has it has so much history, and it was nice to see. Even though the Kings lost, which wasn't nice to see, but you get to appreciate the passion of the Bostonians, and it's something nice that everyone should experience, because man, those fans are something else, and then those fans are something else in terms of just like moxiness and just attitude. Like those people are passionate about their Celtics and their Patriots. But yeah, that was nice to see. And then they faced the Knicks on the 4th, and the 7th they ended in Texas, which is a weird trip to end it with, Matt.
A not so happy reunion in Boston as well. It's going to be good to see him again, but painful to see him wearing green and not purple. We see Isaiah Thomas once again, and Isaiah has done a phenomenal job really becoming an all-star with Boston, and I'm pleased and very happy to see just his story. He's one of those guys that we were talking about that just has a great story of just fighting hard, going against the odds, and being who he is and becoming what he is. And we knew he was talented, but now, unfortunately, seeing him in on another team, we're seeing how talented he really is. And it's going to be tough because you have to expect that he's going to be putting up some numbers and that he's going to have a little fun going against the team that drafted him. And I'm sure there's going to be a friendly rivalry between him and DeMarcus Cousins. Also, we'll see DeMarcus Cousins and Marcus Smart go back at it again. And who can forget when DeMarcus Cousins threw Marcus Smart to the floor last season? So that history is there. And there are a lot of pieces on the Celtics team that I just love. I'm not afraid to call myself a ginormous Jay Crowder fan. I love Avery Bradley as well. Boston is a team that I thought would be doing better than they are, but certainly are a very, very good team. That's probably going to be
decimated with injuries, though.
Yeah, and it's tough and it's frustrating because you know that they can be such a good team if they are healthy. But ultimately, that's going to be the toughest game for the Kings on this road trip. But I also expect that to be the game that the Kings play the best, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I do want to go back to the last play in regular time when Cousins made the basket, and Grant Napier brought up a very good point that Cousins was definitely fouled, and for Grant to say that, because he don't really ever say stuff like that, especially when it comes to Cousins. But do you feel that he was fouled? Because I'm showing it now, but right there, I thought that was a foul. Can you see it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. What I can tell you is what I tell everybody. In the NBA rulebook, 2 hands on any player is an automatic foul. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's written in the rulebook, and that's how it should be officiated. Now, if that were the case, with today's NBA, there would be fouls every 5 seconds. Now, if it's the first or second quarter, yes, I can see that being called a foul. But down the stretch, it doesn't matter if it's DeMarcus Cousins or Kobe Bryant or Joe Schmo. Down the stretch, that foul is rarely going to be called just because of how meaningful of a bucket that it potentially could be. Now, if he misses the shot, I think it's more likely that you see a foul as a late whistle. But since he had made the shot and since the contact was not enough to send Cousins really flailing or throw him off because Cousins is just simply too big, no, I'm not surprised that wasn't a foul. In the rule book, yes, it is a foul. In today's NBA and in a late game situation, I don't believe that is a foul.
Okay. I just wanted to get your opinion because I thought it was a foul. But
I mean, they're absolutely right. In the rule book, it is. And should that be a 3-point play opportunity for Cousins? In the rule book, yes. But it's like the same thing that you see in the NFL. A lot of times there are pass interference on game tying, potentially game winning lobs to the corner of the end zone. And it's not just on the defense, it's on the offense as well. Guys are pushing and shoving and fighting as hard as they can for that ball. I guarantee you, Gortat was being destroyed all game long by DeMarcus Cousins, so he was going to do anything in his power to stop DeMarcus Cousins from getting in the rim. Now, unfortunately, his power is non-existent against a guy like DeMarcus Cousins. So the best that he could do was put 2 hands on the guy and try and push him off a little bit. But even with Gortat putting 2 hands on him and putting his body on him, it still did not throw DeMarcus off that lane and on that run. So I just not egregious enough, in my opinion, to be called a foul that late.
Yeah. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, Matt George's take on that last play.
And believe me, I'm no Mike Pereira for the NBA. I'm not I'm not ahead of officiating in any means. That's just my opinion. A lot of people can agree and disagree. I totally respect Grant's opinion and understand where he's coming from. And I know there are a lot of opinions on our text line and on our comment line. I understand where you're coming from, but I just rarely will you see a call like that unless it is a superstar player. You might see LeBron get that. Yeah. Especially if he misses. Yeah. Especially if he misses. But since the shot was made, I'm certainly not surprised. So The game tonight, a frustrating loss for the Kings, who only scored 3 points in overtime. The execution late. So the two biggest problems with the Sacramento Kings, and this would be a good question to hear from you guys, whether you want to chime in right now as I swallow to fly, or whether you want to join the conversation later. What do you think are the biggest problems with the Sacramento Kings? And I think that'd be an interesting conversation to have. In my mind, the two biggest problems with the Kings are getting off to a slow start, because that's been a problem that's plagued them for past couple of seasons. And then it's their late game execution, where they constantly go to the same thing, which is either a Rudy Gay isolation or a DeMarcus Cousins take to the basket or isolation down low. Now, it worked tonight for DeMarcus, but a lot of times we see it not work because he ends up getting triple and quadruple teamed because other teams know that he's not going to kick the ball out. Rudy Gay got a lot of really good shots tonight, especially down the stretch, and he just wasn't making them. So sometimes you make them, sometimes you miss them. It's frustrating. But ultimately, I think the Kings' playbook needs to expand down the stretch, because it's pretty clear where the ball's going.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the text line right now, and it says, "Do you guys think Rudy Gay finishes the season with the Kings?" I'll let you go first.
Oh, that's a tough question, because it goes back and forth every single week. Gay is playing phenomenal, but he's playing phenomenal because he's on a contract season. So don't get it mixed up. It's not like Rudy Gay, this is going to be the Rudy Gay that you're going to get every season. This is the Rudy Gay that you're capable of getting every season, and even still he can be better. But after he gets a long-term contract, you're not going to see this 110% intensity as much as we're seeing it right now. My gut tells me no. My gut tells me that the Kings are going to be in a similar situation at the trade deadline, and I hate to be doom and gloom, but at the trade deadline, they're going to have a better record than they did last year, but they're not going to be in playoff contention. And in my opinion, trading Rudy Gay at the deadline to a potential contender is when you're going to get the best potential in return, in terms of a team that is on the cusp of the playoffs, or a team like maybe the Oklahoma City Thunder that just is that one piece away from making a serious run, is going to be willing to part with their future in order to make that run. So a team like OKC, or maybe gosh, I don't know, just any insert team here that's looking to make a playoff run, that has draft picks stockpiled, that needs a guy like Rudy Gay to help them score in the playoffs, they are more willing to part with those picks if they think they have a legitimate shot with Rudy Gay. That's where I feel like the Kings are going to get the most out of Rudy, because if they wait until the offseason, the likelihood of them re-signing him is super low, and it's a really high risk of losing him for nothing.
Yeah, and it just seems like Rudy Gay is playing for a contract. I've called him the most frustrating player in the NBA several times now, and I'm not going to change my mind, because previous to the season, he's been inconsistent, and he is still the same player in terms of he takes bad shots in moments where you don't really want him to take those shots. You want him to be within the flow of the offense, and when he is, he's exceptional. But when he isn't, you're like, oh my gosh. A perfect example was the first shot of the game. He posts up a little bit, and then he just fades away in the face of Otto Porter, and he makes a shot. Yeah, he makes a shot, but the percentage of him making that shot is about 30%, and I just don't like those odds, Matt. So I think he will get traded probably before the deadline. That's my prediction. But yeah, I'm gonna go with that. And I think someone else asked what our predictions for the next 4 games are.
So there are predictions. Well, that's difficult because this team is so hard to guess. In my opinion, they will beat Philadelphia. They will bounce back and they will beat Philadelphia, although I think they're going to find it harder than they expect. If they come out flat, or if they take Philadelphia for granted, there's a good chance that they will lose that game. But I don't see anything Philadelphia-wise. If the Kings have a good game offensively, there's not enough in Philadelphia for them to be able to compete with Sacramento to put up the points that they need. So the Sacramento Kings will win that game in Philly. I believe they will lose in Boston. However, it'll be a very, very close game, highly competitive. I'm really interested in the New York Knicks game as well. I think they can win that game, but again, my gut tells me they will not win that game. And then I believe they will win in Dallas.
Okay, so I got them beating the Sixers by 1 point. and I got them losing to the Celtics by about 10. Then I got them beating the Knicks, even though I want to say they're going to lose the game. But they'll beat the Knicks about 3 or 4 points. Porzingis is going to go off and showcase that he will, barring injury, be a top 3 center for the next decade. And they're going to lose to Dallas, man.
Yeah, that one's tough. I believe they can beat Dallas. I believe they will beat Dallas. But I can certainly see them losing as well.
But I'm hoping they win all these games.
Yeah, I mean, and all of them are winnable. That's the thing, is the Kings are able to match up well with most of these teams and can win most of these games. Boston is going to be the most difficult one. And yes, Boston is a good team, but the Kings have areas that they can exploit against Boston. And I look forward to seeing what kind of matchups that Sacramento and Dave Yeager throw at Isaiah Thomas, because Darren Collison is super quick, so he might be able to stay in front of Isaiah. Also, it would be interesting to see if Garrett Temple could potentially handle that assignment as well. So I do believe the Kings match up well in a lot of ways with Boston. I also believe Boston matches up well in a lot of ways with the Sacramento Kings. So again, I believe that's going to be the most fun, most entertaining game, and most competitive game. I just can't see the Kings winning that one just because they haven't gotten over that hump before. Why should I believe they'll start doing now? I guess I'll believe it when I see it. But we're going to wrap up here this podcast. It's so great for all of us to be back together, as it's been a while. And again, we apologize for it being so long, but with sickness and with the holidays and with the Kings and with the everything's going on. So plenty of reasons for us not to be here, but we will be back consistently. I hope we had a wonderful Thanksgiving, Leo. I hope everybody listening had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and watching had a wonderful Thanksgiving. It was great for me. I had a food coma, which is exactly what I wanted. And it's nice that the Sacramento Kings and that the Raiders and any of my teams don't play on Thanksgiving, so I can pass out on the couch to a football game that is meaningless, that I don't care about. But I wanted to, right before we wrap up, first I have to mention, before I get to that, is that if you're a Kings or Reno Big Horns fan, we talked a lot about Reno at the beginning of the podcast. And if you're looking to watch your Kings rookies play with the Reno Big Horns this season, grab life by the horns and visit Don Wire's Reno Dodge dealership and earn big-time savings on your next 2016 Dodge Ram. Ask for the CK Special. You'll get a 20% off MSRP. And with the purchase of a new or used vehicle, you receive a 5-day, 4-night cruise certificate for 2 to Mexico, the Bahamas, or the Western Caribbean. That's nuts. And you get that. It doesn't get any better than that, ladies and gentlemen. Watching basketball, driving a Dodge Ram, and going on a terrific cruise is what grabbing life by the horns is all about. Should let you know, cruise certificate recipient is responsible for port charges, taxes, customs, and fulfillment fees. And you'll see the cruise for more, or the cruise certificate for more details on that. But certainly a great deal. And if you're in Reno and looking for a new car, that's the place that you definitely got to go. We thank Reno.
Visit Reno Dodge.
We appreciate Reno Dodge for being such a good supporter and sponsor of this podcast and of Cowbell Kingdom as a whole. A little sneak preview for the next podcast and for a story hopefully coming out very soon. He has a hat and a monocle on now, ladies and gentlemen. I just saw this for the first time.
Yeah.
This is what I work with. This is what I deal with. I just sit next to this guy at Kings games. You wonder why I'm so grumpy on Twitter. It's not just the Kings. It's this guy. It's this fool. Anyway, look at him go. What a loser. Anyway, a little preview for our upcoming podcast and our and an article hopefully coming up soon on Cowbell Kingdom. I was reminded by this based off of a message that I got here by, once again, our buddy, either Javier or Xavier Joseph. Another great comment. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. He said, I hope we don't get picks because we clearly can't draft anybody correctly. He's talking about the possibility of trading Rudy Gay. I think that's interesting, and there's certainly history behind it that suggests that the Kings don't draft well. There's a lot of history behind that suggests the Kings don't draft well. But one of the things we can talk about, a little sneak preview, is I believe that the Kings are in a big-time state of purgatory, and the draft may be their only way out. So, little teaser there. Keep that in mind and get yourself prepared for that one, and bring your hot takes because we love them. But if you want to have a hot take or share your opinion or comment or anything on anything we've talked about in this podcast, please do so. You can do it on this Facebook or on this YouTube page. You can do it on cowbellkingdom.com. You can do it on Facebook. You can do it on Twitter at Matt George KHTK, at BS Leo to reach Leo directly. Just tweet right at Cowbell Kingdom. We'll both see that. Also on Instagram, you can reach us there. There's so many ways, people, to get in touch with us. Don't feel like we don't want to hear your comments and we don't want to hear your conversation, or that you have a bad question or a dumb take, because all opinions are important, whether they're wrong or not. We enjoy them, and we love to hear from you. So please become a part of the conversation. Again, the question of the night was, what do you think the biggest problems are with the Sacramento Kings? And I'll throw out another little one as a side question to that, so it's not all doom and gloom. What have you liked the most or been most impressed by or pleasantly surprised by involving the Sacramento Kings? You want to answer that really quick, Rilo?
Well, kind of. I was distracted at reading SAS Productions or Bass Spring. He said that if they get Beverly and they put him with Garrett Temple, that would be amazing. Like, you would have two tenacious defenders on this roster, and I would love that.
I can't take this guy seriously with this hat and glasses thing. Oh, God. I'm trying to get past it as best as I can. Oh, boy. You should see some of the suits this guy wears at games, too. I'm sure you've seen the post-game show that we have with the blue suit and the duck tie. Oh, boy. Anyway, no, that is...
I met your mother.
That is a great point. Patrick Beverly and Garrett Temple playing together, that would be a very, very difficult backcourt to score on, although not sure where the scoring is going to come from with that backcourt. But then again, you have DeMarcus Cousins, Rudy Gay. Who cares?
That's right.
And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way as well. But to answer the question really quick, Leo, one of the most pleasantly, or little things that you've been most pleasantly surprised by the Sacramento Kings this season?
On offense or defense?
Yes.
I have been surprised by not much, really. I expected this team to be like this, honestly, early on, especially within the first 25 games. I said they were going to be up and down, that you should expect, 2-3 game winning streaks and then more losing streaks. I mean, I'm on record saying this. So I think after the 25 games and after that 25 game barometer, expect to see the true colors of this team. And who knows, if it doesn't pan out, we could be in for some change, man.
Before I give you my answer, I need a favor out of someone who's watching this, or someone who can go back and watch it afterwards. When Leo leans back to think about that question and the glasses and the hat get really, really tiny, I need someone to take a screenshot of that and tweet it to me, because it was priceless. So someone, please do that for me if you can. But my pleasantly surprised, I knew he was a good role player, but I've just been very I've appreciated a lot what he's brought to the team, and that's Garrett Temple. I knew he was a good player, but I didn't know that he could be this good on both ends of the floor. I think he had a tough task coming off the bench as that main ball handler in the first 8 games of the season when Collison was suspended. I thought he handled that well, and now that he's able to play off the ball more, we're seeing really how good he can be. Defensively, he's been phenomenal. Offensively,
he's versatile, Matt.
He's been better than expected. He's been definitely my bright spot. So share yours. We want to hear your little bright spots, and then what you feel are the maybe 1 or 2 things that are the biggest problems for the Sacramento Kings. And be nice, be real. We want to actually hear these. So until next time, we look forward to having you join the conversation. Matt, George, Leo Beas saying so long. This has been the Cowbell Kingdom podcast on cowbellkingdom.com.
Yeah.